Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational 80 podcast. We'll be right back with this week's Wednesday Wisdom guest. But as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, if you're new to the podcast, these are companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I highly recommend that you check them out. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Wednesday Wisdom interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We'd also like to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. We'd also like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be a magnet for kids, parents, teachers, how about sponsors and alumni? Got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd also like to thank our friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, or results. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is worth the price. Go to homecampus.com for more information. Don't forget to mention the podcast, homecampus.com. We'd like to say thank you to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team help you start creating world-class content for your social media channel. Maybe it's just a simple social media post to celebrate a victory. Maybe it's a complete newsletter to showcase all the great things that your department's doing in the community. Go to Gipper.com for more information. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's at Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's reasonably priced, just 20 months, totally online. And while you earn your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown. They're changing the game with their suite of solutions that include things like, big surprise, digital ticketing. They're still the number one online ticketing platform. But how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction? There's a whole lot more. Whether you're an athletic director, a head coach, or a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you and your school to save time, raise more money, and bring your entire community together. Go to hometown.com for more information. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for everything, kids, coaches, parents, and the information that would come back on these surveys, almost always over the top positive. We also got to hear from those squeaky wheel parents that we were already hearing from, but it gave us a chance to address their concerns, keep them from turning into something big. But the cool thing about all of that positive data is tremendously valuable resource, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got somebody I like to call a friend of the show, a frequent contributor. Our guest today is Allyson Apsey. Regular listeners will recognize that name. Allyson's a longtime educator and principal. She's also a best-selling author, speaks on a national stage. She's also the new director of client relations at a place called Creative Leadership Solutions. Hopefully, she'll share a little bit about that. But Allyson, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom.
Thank you so much. It is always a pleasure. I learn and grow with these conversations, so I really appreciate you having me back.
Well, yeah, again, you're part of the education system. You know, you were on the front lines as a classroom teacher. You're a principal. Athletic directors work with, hopefully they are, working with their principals at their schools. So it's cool to hear another perspective of a very important part of what we call education-based athletics. So I always do this. What do you have for our listeners this time on Wednesday Wisdom?
Well, I have been thinking a lot about the importance of being coachable as a leader. And it's interesting because as I travel around the country and I get to be a coach to many leaders, I encounter leaders and sometimes athletic directors because I do work in sometimes small communities where athletic directors are wearing multiple hats. So they might be the athletic director and assistant principal or PE teacher or coach. You know the deal. Um, so I get to work with athletic directors and coaches as in my travels and work. And I encounter leaders, educators who are ready to be coached and excited to learn and grow. And I also encounter the opposite, which is like I'm being forced on someone who feels like the idea of being coached means they're not good enough or that they are doing something wrong. And as I was thinking about this opportunity to talk with you and Jake, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I just did a little search for a quote that would resonate kind of with what I'm thinking right now, and I found this one by this woman, Abigail Pickus, and she said, "Who exactly seeks out a coach? If you ask a coach, the answer is usually the same: winners who want even more out of life." Isn't that a good one?
No, that's a great one. To your point, again, I'm a lot older than you, so you might not recognize the name John Wooden,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
recognized as probably, the greatest basketball coach of all time. I know he had a quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but he said, I really started to become a better coach when I realized I didn't know everything. And he might have been paraphrasing somebody else too, but it's so true. One of the most frequently mentioned tools, and you have contributed to our athletic director's toolbox. One of the most frequently mentioned ones is having the tool of wanting to learn more, of being a lifelong learner. And so
Mhm.
I think, you mentioned winners. I think successful leaders, whether they're athletic directors or not, they're always, trying to get better. It's not that they don't know anything, but they don't know everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a couple of thoughts. One is, a book that I published alongside my co-author George Couros last spring, so it's about a year old, is called "What Makes a Great Principal." And one of the five pillars of a great principal is continuous learner. So like that concept of the importance of being a continuous learner is not exclusive to any kind of leadership. It is important for all fields, right? And when I became a principal, I was really young. I became an assistant principal, and I thought I became a principal because I knew it all. Like I was ready just to teach everybody and tell everybody what to do. And like that quote that you mentioned, and what John Wooden learned, I didn't become an effective leader or even a good principal until I realized I don't know it all. And my number one job as a leader is to bring out the best in others, not to show everybody how great I am. It's to bring out the best in them. And in order to make progress in that, I had to step back and look at what my strengths were and then be real about what are my blind spots and where are my areas for improvement and ask myself if I was willing to get honest feedback that might be hurtful, but that would help me learn and grow and progress.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And the books are full of great quotations to help remind us of that. As speakers, we use those all the time in our PowerPoints. But I can remember myself, not my first AD job, but I was hired by a school, and the head of school is a private school. He said, Jake, that athletic department is the Wild West. They need a new sheriff. And so um, I probably came into that position with a little more, hey, we're going to do it my way approach initially. And things worked, and I had a great run. We had great success. But I wonder, had I not done that, had I come in with more of a, hey, we are going to do this together, and how can I help you? Which I did at my next school. How much maybe it would have been better.
Right. I mean, because the idea of coaching is to lead to independent application of skills. The idea of coaching is not to always be needed. It's like to work your way out of a job, right? And as a consultant and a deliverer of professional development who travels the country, like I don't ever want to work myself out of a job. But the reality is that that's the work of coaching. And whether, we can think about in the classroom, like we want our students or on the field, we want our students to be willing and ready to be coached, to get feedback that, may or may not be pleasant, utilize that feedback and make progress and eventually not need us. That's our legacy, right? If we're able to help someone develop skills that they can apply independent of us.
And again, as a head coach, you are working with your assistant coaches because you can't do it all. But that's, you've succeeded as a head coach in one way when those assistants are now getting offered head coaching positions from other schools because the program is recognized as successful. They're recognized as successful, and you hate to lose them. But again, that's part of your job is to develop them so they can go off and have success of their own. And as an athletic director, um, I'm sure I stole this phrase. I'll share with other ADs, that young coach, they're probably not going to walk into your office as a Hall of Famer, but
Mm,
with your mentoring and your encouragement of them, training them and helping them up, 20 years down the road, they might walk out of your office as a Hall of Fame coach. And
mm.
so it just, I think for me, it's just a reminder of the tremendous responsibility and the opportunity that we have as leaders to coach those that we're entrusted to coach.
Yes, yes. And I love that because you don't you don't walk into your first athletic director job as an award-winning athletic director, right? Like you can develop those skills if you're willing to learn and grow along the way and recognize that you don't have all the answers. You don't know everything. You definitely know some things and definitely enough to get you into that position, but that's not the finish line. That's the starting line for becoming an incredible leader, athletic director, principal, whatever your role is in education.
Well, let me go and put you on the spot because, again, our listeners are primarily high school and college athletic directors. We also have coaches and some administrators in there too. But what were some things that you did as a building principle to coach, your team? And you probably had a mixture, like we all do, of eager learners and maybe those reluctant learners. Why am I going to listen to this? I know I have. So, what were some tools, if I can choose a word, what were some tools that you used to help them become more coachable?
It's interesting because as I have traveled the country and worked with educators all over, I am so much a better leader and a better coach. And I maybe I'll have an opportunity to go and apply those skills to a school district again, or maybe I'll continue doing what I'm doing. But um, one of the most important things is to establish whether or not the person is ready to be coached. Like often we're providing feedback and we're thinking, we're coaching, but if the person's not ready to be coached or not willing to be coached, how do they interpret that feedback as criticism? And that's not what we're looking to deliver. But if we ask that simple question of like, hey, I believe in you, I see your strengths, and I'm willing to walk alongside you and put in the work to help you grow. Are you ready to be coached? And if so, like let's have mutually agreed upon goals. Because if we don't have goals, if we don't know what we're aiming for, we can't determine whether we have success or we have growth. So I would say establishing that willingness to be coached and being really goal focused can help coaching relationships because then when we always say we don't have enough time. Nobody has enough time, whatever your role is. So we have to maximize the use of time. And when we're able to have those coaching conversations, if they're goal focused, they can be really efficient. Like, hey, tell me the progress you've made on da dot da dot da dot. What are the challenges you're experiencing? What are the next steps? Like it could be a 10-minute conversation. And then one other piece of advice or something I learned is from a gentleman named Michael Bungay Stainer, and he's written many books on coaching. I actually heard him maybe on Oprah's podcast or something like that. But one thing that he said really resonated with me, and when I share it, it resonates with others, and that is 99% of our advice is bad. Isn't that interesting? Maybe he said 98, but it was right up there. Most of our advice is bad. So what does that mean for coaches? What do you think of that?
Well, I'm struggling with that. Can before you make me answer, can you give me a why does he say that? I would agree that maybe half of it is bad and probably more, but 98% that seems a little extreme.
Right, right. And I don't know, like, and I'm thinking of applying that to athletics, like to teach how to do a jump shot or
Hmm.
like certain skills. I don't know if that's advice or if that's just skill coaching. But when we're
Hmm.
talking about advice, I'll give you an example from today. So I had a coaching conversation with I live in Michigan. I had a coaching conversation with a principal in Kentucky via Zoom. And she was sharing with me some of the challenges that she is experiencing over, through the end of the year. So some of the things coming up that she just wanted to talk through. And I could have said, "Hey, okay, I have an idea. I have ideas. I'm an expert, right? So do this, this, and this, and you'll be all set." And then she's going to take that advice and try to do things Allyson Apsey's way. And it's not going to work that great. So if instead I say, all right, tell me more about this. How are you thinking of approaching that conversation? Okay, then if the person responds this way, how might you respond? And then I'm able to just give little tweaks, little bits of guidance and support with what she is sharing with me rather than giving that specific advice. So what works for me is not necessarily what's going to work for someone else. And the job of a coach is to ask the right questions in order to facilitate that thinking of like, okay, how am I going to handle this? What might be my next step? And then we can give just some little guidance or tweaks that might help. It might help the individual approach the situation better.
Mhm. Yeah, and as you were sharing that, yeah, the light bulb that was coming on for me is again a very frequently mentioned tool, and one that I will tell listeners that I did not use as early in my career as I wish I would have, is the tool of listening. The
Mhm.
example I give is, maybe it's a coach or a kid, or usually be a parent. They'd come to my office, and mostly parents, this, they just want to vent. They're not looking to have their kid become the starting quarterback. They know that's not going to happen. But early on in my career, a parent would come to my office, and maybe 10 seconds into their vent or their conversation, I had already come up with a dozen different solutions to a problem that didn't even exist. And I tell this, I said, when I finally learned to shut up and listen, I think I became a much more effective, leader, coach, educator, et cetera. And that's what I, encourage my coaches to do is, shut up and listen. And then, like you said, come back with those little tweaks. Have you tried this? As opposed to, well, this is what you need to do,
Absolutely.
because it is so easy to give that free advice. Sometimes, when the shoe's on the other foot, it's hard to take that advice.
Right, right. And like to your point, I love that you're like questioning back that 98%. So maybe the 98% is our initial instinct advice. Like until we stay curious and try to learn what is actually the problem. Because and sometimes we're solving problems, but they create other problems. And we have a domino effect. So making sure that we're supporting the individual in solving the right problem also requires us to stay curious. And that tool, I was waiting for you to give like some like deep level like intricate tool, and you said the tool of listening, and I just love the simplicity of that because there are just some things that we can apply consistently. They're not rocket science, they're not
Mhm.
complicated. That idea of listening more, staying curious, asking questions that can help probe a little bit so that when we do finally give advice, it is good advice.
Well, and you mentioned that a good leader asks the right questions. Um, I had a tremendous. I've been very fortunate with people I've had as bosses, if you will, people I had to work for, work with. And this is a principle. Teachers, coaches, there's an evaluation process, many times an evaluation tool. And this particular principle, um, you come in for your meeting, if you will, and the first thing that he asked was, well, or the first thing he said was, what are some things that you thought went really well this year? And I was
Mm.
just, taken aback. What? Well, okay, I think I did this okay, and this was good, and this and that. And he just, nodded and listened, and
Mhm.
then he said, "Well, is there anything that, looking back at this year, that you'd like to work on for next year?" And so, well, I think I'd like to do this. And then it was goes, well, how can I help you do that? And so it was never, you need to do this, or you should do this, or you didn't do that. Um, but it goes to your point of having that goal. And it wasn't his goal. It was, hey, Jake, what would you like to work on? Well, how can I help you accomplish that? And again, like any good administrator did, I stole that
Yeah,
tool. And that's what I took to my next school as an athletic director. And it was the most successful stop of my administrative career. Great experience. There were some challenges, of course, but it just such a great experience. I wish I could have had that tool earlier on.
absolutely. Yeah. So maybe we have some like really young newbie athletic directors listening who can apply those pieces, nuggets of wisdom right away in their careers. But you hit on a passion of mine, which is evaluation. Like when I ask teachers how they feel about teacher evaluation, guess what they say?
They don't like them.
They don't like it. Yes. And then when you look at the research, evaluation does not improve student achievement, and it contributes to teacher job dissatisfaction, and sometimes can erode relationships between leaders and teachers. And I always had that mentality of like, I want this evaluation process to add value to you. And your administrator did that, right? Like by asking questions, by having you create the goals, and then he can say, "How can I support you?" That's adding value to you as a professional. Like teachers don't want, or coaches don't want you to like go in, observe them one time in the season or over the course of the semester, and then think that you have enough information to make an accurate judgment on their performance. That's not fair, and it doesn't work. So one of the pieces of the really good advice that I give is to, when you see something that needs improvement, rather than to go to the person and say, "Hey, I noticed this, you need to work on it," to say, "Did you notice this? And what were your thoughts?" Because 9 times out of 10, the teacher, the coach that you ask is already going to have processed it and thought through solutions, because when they see you walk in, they're looking at practice or the classroom through your eyes. They're not looking at it through their own eyes. They're trying to understand, okay, what do you see? What's going well? What's not going well? And they've reflected and processed. So it's really important to empower them through asking, what did you think? Because then it's not criticism, it's just walking alongside them as a teammate.
Yeah, and I love your point about the how the evaluation process. I think historically it's just been a negative, and it hasn't promoted what we want it to promote. So yeah, we have to do a better job as leaders in helping our teachers, helping our coaches, the people that are working directly with the kids. Do a better job. I think it'd be great if a principal, if their daily routine was just going to every classroom and watching teachers teach and watching the kids. And the same thing with an AD. It was a priority for me to go to practices and be seen, not just once a season, but be seen by the coaches, be seen by the kids. Oh, geez, here comes the AD. I guess somebody's in trouble. I didn't want that to be,
Um,
my calling card. I wanted to, just they knew that I was supporting them. And I know you felt that way too as a principal.
Absolutely. I carried a little laminated list of all the classrooms in the school. And then I would just use like a vis-a-vis marker, like a wipe off marker, and mark each classroom as I went through. My goal was every classroom every day, just like you said. And I mean, that's a like pie in the sky goal, right? So I knew I wasn't going to hit that every single day, but I knew where I needed to go the next day because I had a system to mark off where I had been. And I don't want, I was also really careful. Like, we don't want to just go in always at the beginning of practice or always at the end of practice.
Right.
We want to make sure that we're going in, at all times. And same with the classroom. As a school leader, I wanted to make sure I was going in the morning, middle of the day, afternoon. Because then not only are we given these opportunities to coach in real time, but we're also given opportunities to reinforce the great things that we're seeing, and learn where they need support, and asking them like, "Hey, I was in there. Anything I can do to support you or to help?" And then just our teams seeing us is so important.
Right. And those are two great points. You brought up earlier about um, you're not just going to go into the middle of a lesson or the middle of a practice and say, "Oh, you're doing this all wrong," but catch them later. And I would really try to avoid, "Hey, I need to see you in my office."
Oh, yes, don't do
Uh,
that.
but um, I'd say I'd run to a coach, "Hey, really enjoyed that drill you were doing yesterday in practice. Where'd you pick that up?" And so it gives them a chance to talk about, well, my coach did it in high school, or I went to a camp or something like that. Or boy, you were really reaming out Billy the other day. What was that all about? And so it gives them a chance to say, oh, I was having a bad day and I went to the kid, apologized later on, or whatever it was. The kid was being an a-hole. And so again, just keeping your finger on that pulse, whether it's, the fourth grade classroom or, the varsity soccer practice, just being out there, letting them know that, hey, we're all on the same team.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Allison, this is great. We could do this, I think, the rest of the day. Um, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and follow you, find out more, and listeners, if this is your first time visiting with Allyson Apsey, you have a tremendous resource here. The books, the speaking. How do they find out more about Allyson Apsey?
So I mean, if you know how to spell my name, you can reach me on all the social medias. My email address is allisonapsey.com. I try to keep it simple. And oh no, my email address is allisonapsey@gmail.com. My website is allisonapsey.com, or I'm on the LinkedIn, Twitter,
Mhm.
X, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things. So I would love to stay connected because I just think we're so much better together. And one last thing is just thinking through, I'm guessing that the people who are listening to this podcast are listening because they want to learn and grow and they are coachable. I'm guessing. So the question is then who is your coach? Who is coaching you? And if you can't identify anyone who's coaching you, find somebody because you're ready to learn and grow and win and be successful. And in order to do that, we have to find somebody who's going to give us honest feedback.
Well, if you're listening to this podcast, we appreciate it, but you just found another great resource. Go to AllisonApsey.com, check out all the program services that she can provide you and help coach you to that next level. Okay. Allison, thanks as always for being on. All the best as we wrap up the spring, and hopefully you're going to get some downtime this summer.
Yes, you too. We for sure will.
Okay. For listeners, we want to thank you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Wednesday Wisdom every single week, and just about every day we try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So hopefully you'll join us on the next Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again. Before we go, of course, we want to also thank our sponsors one more time. Athletic Surveys, go to athleticsurveys.com. Huddle, go to huddle.com. Snap Raise, obviously you'll find them at snapraise.com. Vital Signs Wall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Gipper, you'll find them at gipper.com. Sideline Interactive, sidelineinteractive.com. Home Campus, how about homecampus.com? Ohio University and their online masters, check them out. And Hometown, go to hometown.com for more information. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.